Hi, my name is Frank. It's Friday, time to kick back, talk music. Today I'm continuing my top 5 series, this time ranking the top 5 Judas Priest albums from the 1980s. Alright, this one is going to be more difficult, I think. One, because Priest is probably my favorite band of all time. That's number one. Number two, I'm ranking the top 5 albums from the 1980s, and Judas Priest only put out 6 albums from the 1980s. So I got to knock one off the list, and it's going to be between these two, Ram It Down and from 1986, Turbo. I was never a huge fan of this album. I remember buying it when I was 15 years old, and right away I was like, what is this? What is this? It's not that great. Part of what I don't like about this album is Dave Holland basically doesn't play on any of it, or his playing is minimal, to say the least. It's mostly a drum machine, which I don't think necessarily works, and I didn't think that the songwriting was up to par. I dig the title track. Heavy metal, that's okay. Blood Red Skies, Love You Death. I love those ones, but this is not one of my favorite Priest albums. In terms of Turbo, this is probably the most divisive Judas Priest album. This came out when I was 13. I loved it at the time, but again, this is just me speaking. Your opinion may be different, and very likely is. I don't think this has held up very well over the years. I mean, obviously there's a new direction for Priest with the guitar synths. Again, I think it's a drum machine on here, but I'm not sure. But obviously a much more pop-orientated direction they took. But some tracks on here, I think Out in the Cold, Stone Cold Priest classic. Actually, I like a lot of side 2, Wild Nights, Hot for Love, Reckless, side 1, Turbo, but I never need to hear Parental Guidance, Private Property, Rock You All Around the World Again. I know many of you are going to like those tunes, but I just think they're silly. So if I had to knock one of these out of my top 5, which one would it be? This one. This is going off the rankings. Again, Priest is my favorite band. I love all their stuff, but out of all the others in the 80s, this is my least favorite. So this is number 5. We talked about that already. So what is next? What do we go for number 4? Let's do Point of Entry from 1981. I know a lot of Priest fans do not dig this record at all. And I'm not going to tell you it's a Stone Cold classic. I'm not going to tell you it's even one of the better Priest records. But of the 1980s studio output, I will rank this at number 4. And I kind of judge this upon, okay, out of all these records, which ones do I still revisit the most often? I listen to these maybe once a year thinking, okay, I'll give them another try. They can't be that bad. And then I kind of file them away. But this one, I don't mind. Tracks like Turning Circles, Desert Plains, Solar Angels, those 3 tracks, awesome. Heading Out to the Highway, not so bad. And there's not some bad tracks on here. So, on my list, the top 5 Priest albums of the 1980s, number 4, Point of Entry. Now this is where we get to the really good stuff. These next 3 albums, awesome. I love all of them. But for number 3 slot, I'm going to go with the 1980 release, British Steel. This was a huge album, as we all know, right, for Judas Priest. This really helped break down the doors for the band in North America. And in this album, they really stripped down their sound. They boiled it down to the essentials. And this was the result. It's not dissimilar to what Metallica did with the Black Album, right? Prior to that, the mainstream had heard of Metallica, but they didn't really know their music. So they stripped down their tunes. They stripped down their sound and released the Black Album. That's what Priest kind of did with this one. I never need to hear Breaking the Law and Living After Midnight again, but otherwise there's so many great tracks on here. Rapid Fire, Metal Gods. Metal Gods is one of my favorite Priest songs of all time. Grinder, Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise, The Rage, The Stealer, all that puts this album for me at number 3 on my top 5 list of Priest albums of the 1980s. Okay, this is where it gets really challenging because there's 2 records left. And either of these could have been number 1 for me. Again, this is my list, your opinions. Your list is probably very different. That's totally cool. After you watch this video, let me know in the comments below what albums would make your top 5 list from the 1980s from Priest. So either of these could have been number 1. And if I did this video next week, I could have maybe flipped these around. But right now, this is my thinking. Number 2, 1982's Screaming for Vengeance. I love this album. This is one of my favorite records of all time. I remember hearing it for the first time probably in 1983 or so, maybe 84. I was like 10 or 11 years old. I loved it then. I love it now. This is one of those records where I know every note, I know every lyric, I know every little detail of this record. Of course, the huge hit on here was You Got Another Thing Coming. That's one of those songs I'm kind of tired of. I don't need to hear again, but there's so many other great ones on here, right? Riding on the Wind, Bloodstone, Take These Chains, Pain and Pleasure, Screaming for Vengeance, Fever, Devil's Child, all so good, which is why I rank this one at number 2. And drum roll, please, though if you're a Priest fan, this is kind of anticlimactic because you know exactly what this is. 1984's Defenders of the Faith. I think on this record, Priest kind of went in the direction they started with this album, but took it to another level, right? It's kind of got like the catchy tunes from this one, but they're a little more complicated. There's a little more to them. The songs are a little bit longer, which is why I've never gotten bored of this record after all these years. My favorite Priest song, well, it's probably Victim of Changes, but it may be The Sentinel, and The Sentinel is on this record. Again, so many good tracks on here. Freewheel Burning. I remember hearing that one as a kid and seeing the music video for it that took place in the arcade, right? And hearing Rob do that really fast middle part blew my 11 or 12-year-old mind. The second video, Love Bites, it's such a unique song, but there's just so much more on here. Rock Hard, Ride Free, Jawbreaker, Eat Me Alive, Some Heads Are Gonna Roll, Night Comes Down. Night Comes Down is such a perfect, I was going to call it a ballad. Is it really a ballad? I don't know. Let's call it a ballad. The perfect heavy metal ballad. For all those reasons, I rank Defenders of the Faith as the number 1 Judas Priest album of the 1980s. All right, 33ers, that is my quick rundown of my top 5 Judas Priest records of the 1980s. What do you think? I know we're all not going to agree on this, so hop into the comments and let me know which 5 are on your list and in what order. I'd love to know. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. Until next time, keep on spinning.